Well, welcome. This is episode 73, and today's topic of Women on Wealth is really around financial therapy. And before I introduce my guest speaker today, I had this conversation over the weekend with someone, and she responded, "What the heck is financial therapy?" So I'm excited to have this conversation with Wendy Wright. Wendy, welcome.
Thank you, Jelena. I'm glad to be here and talk about what the heck is financial therapy.
I know. Let's go with it. Before we do that, let me give you a quick introduction.
Mhm.
You are the CEO of Financial Therapy Solutions. You're out of Denver, Colorado. I've already asked you about the snow,
Mhm.
and we're going to meet at Krusty Butte one of these days.
Yay. Yes.
You are a financial therapist that's known for your expertise in merging the psychology and finance, which I think is so unique. Your credentials, you're a licensed therapist, a money coach, author, business owner. You are leveraging your diverse background as a former mortgage loan officer, business proprietor, and licensed marriage and family therapist. You have transformed the financial therapy and money consulting. We're going to talk about how you've done that. And your approach helps clients overcome the psychological barriers which are impeding financial growth. The reason I'm so excited about this, Wendy, is I think everyone knows I'm a big proponent of financial therapy, hence the podcast
Mhm.
and the book. But I do believe it is so important and critical that individuals understand their emotions and their money mindset around finance. And I don't think we talk about it enough. So I love what you do.
Oh, I'm so glad that you love it and that you get it, because that's a big part of really, I can tell a client's ready for work when they come in getting that there is this connection. And you may have heard, I think upwards of 80 to 85%, based on whatever research you look at, of our money decisions are made through emotional decision-making factors.
Amazing,
Mhm.
right? And I
Mhm.
will say, even for myself, it's funny how sometimes you can't acknowledge your own feelings and
Mhm.
emotions. And I don't think I really quite did until I started interviewing other women for the podcast. And then all of a sudden it was like, wow,
Mm.
this is really emotional. So
Yeah.
yeah. So let's start
Mhm.
let's start with that fundamental question. What is financial therapy?
Yeah. What the heck is it? Well, it is tagline often is it's the intersection of money and emotions. Sometimes I'll say something like, "Well, have you ever cried about money?" And most people will go, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Well, that's it. That's the doorway we go into. We're entering this field. We're entering the arena of emotions through the door of money, which is something that a lot of therapists themselves are not comfortable with, and I'm not trash talking them. They have told me this. It's like they'll send people to me to do a little bit of the money work, and so we'll do that. And it is really approaching money with more mindfulness. And one of the I've created 10 principles of financial therapy to kind of help guide what this is.
Yes, I love
And the
it.
first one is that we approach it with abundant, compassionate curiosity and zero judgment. And I always say the first one has to come first. The other nine can come in whatever order the client needs them to come in. But when we take the judgment out, things
Mhm.
begin to shift.
Okay. And can you dive a little bit deeper about the
Mhm.
judgment piece? Because I'm thinking about it a couple of different ways.
Yeah. Well, what comes to your mind?
Well, my first reaction was an experience I had last night with my daughter, where she said, "I
Mhm.
need new volleyball shoes." She took my iPad, went on Amazon, and then turned it around and showed me the price. And I'm like, goodness. My answer
Mhm.
wasn't goodness. It was a little bit more harsh. That's my first.
Okay.
It's that emotional
Yeah.
cringe sometimes when you need to buy something.
Oh, that's a good one. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And that emotional cringe is such a great one, because I think cringe is actually an emotion a lot of people have when it comes to money. But that's a really great example too, because often we are operating out of our own context. So a parent-child relationship, the parent has the context of all the money, all the bills, all the income, outgo, everything that's coming up. And so X number of dollars for a pair of shoes has a certain meaning to the parent. The
Yes.
child, maybe, we don't know their context, but often maybe what happened is they heard, "Oh, so and so is getting a pair of shoes for $5,000, and this is 500. I just saved mom and dad money," or whatever. It's like, So we want to know, that's where we come in it without judging it. We look at, okay, tell me a little bit about what brought you to this pair of shoes, and tell me what you think about this price. And then you get to learn where they're coming from. Now, what happens often, and I think many of those listening might agree with this, often we are taught money really kind of backwards. We're often taught because we did something that someone else judged. Like, how could you spend that? Why did you spend that? You lost $100 bill? Are you kidding me? How did you do that? Like, these stories stack up over and over and over for many people. And that's why part of financial therapy is looking at the context of your childhood, early adolescence, adulthood. We look for the stories, and then I can see threads that carry through to, today.
Yeah.
And when we begin to do that, sometimes what that helps us do is not even reteach ourselves. Maybe we're teaching ourselves. Often we're teaching ourselves for the first time,
Right.
but we're doing it with compassion and curiosity and not judgment.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I have a follow-up to my story. I'm going to wait
Mm-hmm.
for a little bit because I think I'm going to ask it more as a question if I can in a little bit. So, but thank you for
Mm-hmm.
going through that. And
Yeah.
so this is a unique career path. So
Yes.
How did you get to where you are now?
Yeah. Well, I kind of got here, I won't say by accident, but I often think of, I was interviewed once and I said, I see my life as a quilt, and I don't always know all the squares and how they're going to come together. But looking back to what you said, I started out in mortgage banking. I have a business undergrad. I was a realtor. I flipped houses. I've done all these, had different businesses. And then in the midst of that, kind of overlapping that, I started getting my therapy degree. And then in therapy, I ultimately developed a eating disorder specialty. So I'm an eating disorder specialist and have also a unique family of eating disorders. Training and know-how because of the marriage and family degree. There are a lot of people in the eating disorder world who work with individuals, not as many that work with the family structure, and the family structure is really important to healing.
Sure.
So in that process, I began to notice, this is kind of long story short, but I have the long story long in a workbook I call Healing Through the Money Food Connection, which we're offering your listeners a discount to at the link I sent you. But where we look at, I began to see this really interesting parallel. When people were not using eating disorder behaviors anymore, they started showing the same thought patterns in their decisions around shopping or saving. So I began to see this parallel. And literally maybe a decade ago, I was looking like, has anyone else noticed this emotion, money connection? And this was right about the time the Financial Therapy Association came to be, as well as some of the leading books on it, some of the people working in it. And I loved it right away. I was like, oh, this is the secret sauce. This is the missing ingredient, highly missing ingredient to recovery, because not a lot of people talk about the money of recovery, things like that. So when I began to see that, and when I moved into private practice, I now exclusively see financial therapy clients.
Interesting. And so, Wendy, I'm curious, did you have a similar effect like I did, where you started to realize some certain behaviors of your own as you went down this path?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. When we talk about mindsets and talk about that kind of like, what is your sort of your go-to, your reactionary story? You tell yourself, I had a lot of scarcity in mind. Like, there won't be enough. How will this ever work? How will this ever be enough? And that the scarcity mindset also says it's easier to just not spend, because then then we kind of ... We're in the perfection mindset at that point, because I may or may not have a little bit of perfection in me, that you don't do anything unless you do it perfectly, right? Yeah. And that often is what keeps people frozen, like literally frozen at their keyboard, about to log into an account. And the next thing they know, it's 5 hours later and they just finished a whole season of whatever on Netflix, Yeah. So noticing those behaviors without judgment, noticing them with curiosity about, what is this telling us about money or about your relationship to yourself or whatever it is. Yes, definitely had to do my own work around that too.
Absolutely. And I think we know a lot of women that are perfectionists, and this is
but
something we find
compassion and curiosity. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And what about we referenced money mindset a couple times already. I talk about it a lot. Can
Mhm.
you, how do you describe it and what do you think of its impact on financial success?
It's huge, absolutely huge, because the mindset is the way I describe it. Um, what is a money mindset? It is a mindset is a belief that may or may not be a truth.
Okay.
So, for instance, a perfection mindset is a belief that that perfection exists, which is
Mhm.
not a truth. A belief that you can do money perfectly, which is not a truth. A belief that money work will be done at some point, which is not a truth. One of my principles of financial therapy is that money work is never done.
Mhm.
And that right then and there, all of you perfectionists listening to us just ran out of the room screaming, I'm sorry, but money work is never done. And that's
Yeah.
actually a very important thing to recognize. So the mindset becomes almost like the door you go into. So if there's never going to be enough, you see everything as is the last dollar I'll ever have to spend, right?
Right.
If there's always going to be enough, which sometimes is misconstrued as an abundance mindset, but I do a lot of work around not looking at an abundance mindset because often that can be cover for avoidance. So
Okay.
when I'm looking at scarcity, like the opposite of scarcity in the way I describe it is sufficiency.
Okay.
It's kind of getting to enoughness. What does
Yeah.
that feel like?
Hmm.
And then if someone's doing a lot of avoidance, maybe they're using abundance words, and
Okay.
maybe they're not, so that's why everybody wants to name their own words. But we look at that and see, is there some avoidance hiding out there? Is this
Okay.
keeping you from logging into your bank balance? However it is, we just walk through it very softly.
Right. And
Mm-hmm.
we all, I talk about this a lot, but we all create our own money mindsets starting from a young
Mm-hmm.
age, from experiences with
Mm-hmm.
family, et cetera. And I have my own experiences that, my parents are surprised that it had such an effect on me, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's for one
Right.
reason or other, I created my own. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking about my daughter last night as she handed me the iPad. She
Mm-hmm.
said to me, Mom, I know you think this is a lot of money, but, and then
Right.
she listed three friends that had also just bought those shoes for volleyball.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat there thinking, oh my gosh, she knows I freak out about money every time she asks for something.
Okay.
So I'm curious to think what her
Mm-hmm.
money mindset will be as she gets older
Mm-hmm.
based on my reaction. I don't know if you have an answer for that or not. It's just
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting to witness how my girls are reacting to my own money cringe.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the
Mm-hmm.
word we used
Mm-hmm.
before? I can't remember.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Um,
anyways, I don't know if
yeah.
you have a comment around that, but it's, to me, it's just so
Mhm,
intriguing how we all create our own path, whether
mhm.
it's right or wrong, or whether it's a good experience or a bad experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think looking at that is insightful, first of all, Jelena, but also noticing you're recognizing you have a mindset, you have a history. She
Mhm.
has a mindset, she has a history. So you've got this clarity that she is developing her mindset. It's
Right.
not like you can avoid it or make it not happen because you're not comfortable with yours yet. So noticing that and then coming in and layering on a lot of that compassion and curiosity. And you can, one thing too, that therapy is helpful. I think we can always go back to a conversation we had 2 days before. Because sometimes we feel like, oh, I didn't say the right thing at the right time.
Yeah.
But always get to go back. So,
Okay.
you can go back and you can say, I want to be curious around this. So
Mhm.
beginning to drip in words like curious,
Okay.
compassion,
Okay.
that there is no right or wrong. Because in that scenario, there is no right or wrong.
Yeah.
And that is really helpful when we take out any sort of dichotomous thinking that something is right or wrong, or all or nothing, or good or bad.
Yes.
And that is it's another principle that I have, that there is no good or bad with money. Because a
Okay.
lot of people so solidly, their mindset, which a belief that is or may or may not be a truth, is that they are bad with money. And then we look at how does that mindset lead to behaviors? Because if you're bad with money, you never check your bank balance because it's always going to be bad news, right? If you're bad with money, why would you ask for more money? Why would you ask for a raise? You're just going to blow it. Like you want to see how that belief begins to make decisions for you. So I think it's
Wow.
beautiful. And hopefully there's, at least 1,000 parents that are listening today who can go back tonight or tomorrow to go to a conversation they've had with their kids and say, you know what, I've began thinking about this. Let's be curious about this.
Okay.
I noticed, because what you're also probably noticing, which is fantastic, is the body response you had, the body response she's having. And then,
Mhm.
but you get this great teaching moment of like, I noticed my body response. You're helping kids notice, they get to count, they get to notice and pay attention to how they respond.
Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that
Yeah.
answer. And not one that's, Jillian, are you sure you're not going crazy?
No, 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 no. I appreciate your vulnerability because you are not alone in that moment at
No,
all.
no, and
Mm-hmm.
I do acknowledge that. I guess when you think of money mindset, is there something that comes to mind for you, or
Mm-hmm.
how would you? Is there another way that you would explain it, maybe to a client?
Well, I think, let's see, how would I explain it? I do have a program called the Money Mindset Shift where I talk a lot about mindset. And we
Mhm.
talk about first identifying it. And so, and also I created a sort of a mindset matrix. I call it a decision making matrix because um, we want to take the money out of money because the money word often creates a full body reaction. If
Yes,
we're like, all we ever fight about is money, then it feels like
yes,
money is this monster in the house kind of thing. But if we
yeah,
take out the word money and we say, all we really fight about is it control, respect? It's often a difference of opinion, and how do you make it through a difference of opinion, things like that.
yeah.
So in the money mindset shift, we start with awareness and we start with an exercise that I encourage everyone to start with. And that is, and it's a free download. If anyone emails me at wendy@financialtherapysolutions.com, they can get this free download. I'll send it to them of a tracking system that's tracking transactions with thoughts and feelings. Not
Hmm.
even worrying about the numbers yet.
Okay,
Coming in. And after you do that for a few days, usually you'll notice what's being repeated. Like maybe I was anxious, anxious, anxious. Maybe I felt avoidant, avoidant, avoidant. Maybe,
right.
so whatever it is, we look for those themes and that helps us come to, okay, what mindset might be happening here? And
Okay.
then we look at, okay, is it helping or not? Is that mindset getting you where you want to go?
So you're literally just tracking any type of financial transaction, like
Mhm.
going to Starbucks.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yes.
Huh.
One an example I use a lot because this happens a lot for everybody is what do you notice if you go to the gas station and it's 10 cents more than it was yesterday? So if you freak out on a scale of 1 to 10, you're at
Yeah.
1,000 because you should have bought it yesterday. You may have some scarcity, some perfectionism, kind of
Mhm.
mindset.
Yeah.
If you're like, oh, that's fine, I had other things to do yesterday, then maybe you've got some neutrality around that, and that's totally fine too. It's good to notice neutrality.
Mm.
Or if you're like, I don't even remember what it was yesterday. I don't even remember what it was last month. Then maybe you've got some avoidance, So it's like looking at these small transactions sometimes can give us a lot of really cool information. Sometimes
Wow.
it's also helpful to track what you put in your cart and don't buy, or what you not obsess over. I call it intrusive repetitive thought pattern. So if you
Okay.
thought about a pair of shoes or a trip or something over and
Yeah.
over and over, it's intrusive and repetitive. And so what's happening there? There are lots of different
Interesting.
things we can learn.
I'm sure. I can only imagine what I would track if I went to like Costco for an hour,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
There's a
Well,
lot of
and
emotions when
that's
I'm in there.
yeah, that's a great example too, because lots of people go to Costco or a big box store.
Yeah.
And what happens there is maybe you're feeling a lot of energy around 3 or 4 of the 100 things you bought. Maybe you're feeling just a lot of energy around the total.
Right.
It doesn't matter. You just notice what you notice. There's no judgment and there's no right or wrong.
Hmm. Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
I love it. So how would you suggest that financial therapy can help change and heal, I guess, the way people think about money?
Yeah. How can financial therapy help heal? One of the biggest ways is that I believe it can. So a lot of my clients will start out thinking, I'll say, what would you like to see change? And they might describe some things and then they'll throw in the word, but it's not possible, or it's impossible, or I have been trying and I can't get this done. And I will typically reflect, you know what, I've seen this change. I have
Okay.
seen it get better. So, because they need to know there's some hope.
Yes.
I really look at my clients as adventurers because they really don't know what the heck they're getting into when they come to financial therapy sessions. They're like,
Sure. Yeah.
I know I want this to get better, but how's this going to work? And
Yeah.
then it's really cool because 2 or 3 months down the road, different time frame for different people, they'll come to session and they'll be like, I'm doing this thing that I
Yeah.
thought was impossible and it's happening. And a lot
Mm.
of it is honestly happening because we stopped judging. We
Okay.
we stopped stepping into the old story and we're stepping into a new story, or we're maybe healing. And if therapy words are so weird, of course, like we're stepping through and all this stuff, but how do
Yeah.
you heal your money story? Well, part of it's that you tell it,
Okay.
because a
Yeah.
lot of people have never really had a safe place they can tell their money story. So they can tell it to me in a session, or they can, if that's not available to someone at this point, you can write it. You can just
Yep.
write your money story. You can write it
Yep.
in third person. There was this gal who was, 6, and then this happened. And sometimes that helps you begin to heal it. I'm going to do all that, of course, safely and with the emotional support that you need, caveat there. But it does help to tell it. Mhm.
Okay. And when you ask someone what would they like to have change, what types of
Mhm.
answers, is there one that's very common, or what types of answers do you get to that? I'm just curious.
Mm, yeah. You know, what do they want to see change? This helped me actually develop my tagline because my tagline is something about moving out of money chaos into money confidence and clarity,
Yeah.
because that is often what people want. They want peace, they want
Okay.
clarity, they want understanding, they want to not feel stupid, they want to feel like they can do it. Which I think is interesting because I think some people might think people want $1 million, but there's rarely a dollar amount to what they're looking for in healing their relationship with money. What do you
Yeah.
think of that?
It makes complete sense to me, but I also think that for some of the listeners, they may be surprised to hear that. So that's why I wanted
Mhm.
to ask the question. I have noticed that over the last couple of years, which is for me, it wasn't intuitive what you just said, but
Mhm.
it makes sense now that I've, the more I have these conversations with individuals.
Yeah.
So thank you
Mhm.
for going through that. And what about money confidence, right? Is
Mhm.
something that I talk a lot about because I think to get the confidence, maybe you need to go to
Yeah.
therapy or you need to acknowledge your money mindset, whatever it may be. So
Mhm.
what to you would describe positive signs of having money confidence?
Mm, that's a great question. Because thinking about what's going to describe money confidence is it often starts out invisible. So that's a really great question. I
Mm.
like to think of it, and I tell some of my clients this, it would be really nice if your hair turned really dark purple the worse your money confidence was, and got lighter purple as the confidence grew, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of it's in our thoughts, and our thoughts are not like, really in front of our face all the time, even though
Yeah.
they're kind of in here. But so thinking about, and this is part of what I try to offer people as we're working, I want to give them small wins and then the bigger picture wins.
Okay.
So some of the small wins is maybe instead of thinking about money, because a lot of times I'll ask the question, what percentage of your thoughts are given over to some kind of money thought, worry, concern? And they'll
Mhm.
say, 75%, 120%, 99%, like it's just right there.
Yeah.
And
High
so
number.
yeah, it's a high number. And if it's, honestly, if it's over 50%, that's a good sign right there that it's in charge of you. You're not in charge of it.
Yeah.
So what we'll talk about is they'll say things like, I notice I'm thinking about it less. I notice I have a plan in place now. I know what to do with this money. I have
Hmm.
or I noticed that I was less anxious this week, or there's a lot of things like that. So we do try
Amazing.
to look for, and I try to tune it into each client as to what they're working on. But in general, we want to see a shift in thoughts.
Yeah.
We want to see more clarity in the plan and what's going to happen with money. But I also, another one of my principles is that a plan is only as good as the adjustment process. So we
Oh,
work
yeah.
on the adjustment process before we work on the plan,
Okay.
which can really frustrate some people because they want to come in and get, they want me to tell them what to do.
Exactly.
And
Just get me there.
That's not, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's not therapy. So now I am a money coach as well. So I will blend some pieces of money coaching in. But what we do, and we look at it therapeutically, and I'm like, well, why don't we try this? And then if it happens, that's great. If it doesn't happen, that's great too, because we talk about what got in the way. And we dig under. And a lot of my clients are fantastic because they often kind of know where they're getting stuck, what it is that they need to talk about that they haven't talked about before. They're very intuitive.
And I would think that if they're coming to you, they've already acknowledged some element of needing help, which is a big step, right?
Yeah.
So that's great. And have you found a certain demographic or age or net worth that really needs this financial therapy more than others?
Such a great question. So who needs financial therapy? I'm going to say everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is not bank account based.
Yeah.
It is not age based. It is not part of the country based. It's not even part of the world based. I work with people worldwide, and they're the same money concerns, issues in different countries. So I think that that's hopefully really helpful for people to hear they're not alone.
Yes.
And that's a big thing.
Yeah.
Whatever your money little problem is or concern is, you are not alone.
Yeah. And I've even found sometimes, working with clients that are perfectly fine financially, right? They have plenty of money, and yet they still internally struggle with how they spend. And they're not frugal, but they're not lavish. They spend within their means, and they still have this internal debate that they're not spending appropriately. It's so interesting to me.
Right. Yeah.
So thank you for that. And what about, you talked about working with families and how, a big challenge, of course, and I'm thinking now of my conversation with my daughter, right, is how we talk to our loved ones about money, but maybe more broadly speaking, not just the shoe, but we talk about, adults talking to their parents, or, talking to the younger generation as they get older. What's some suggestions that you have? This is a big one that I think people struggle with.
Yeah, I think so too. I get asked that a lot too. Like, how do I talk to aging parents? How do I talk to my kids? How do I talk to my partner? How do I talk to my business partner? That's a big one. And even how do I talk to myself as a business owner? Because often those of us that are entrepreneurs have different money conversations with that part of ourselves, and then the part of ourselves that's going to Target and trying to decide, am I going to get this pillow or not? It's very interesting. So again, we're going to look at this with curiosity and no judgment. And I think, like, if we can, let's mess around with the shoes. Like, for one thing, think about contextually how maybe your parents and you and your children would look at a pair of shoes, because prices change all the time. And prices always go up. So that's another thing, just to, for anyone who thinks that they're going to not go up. But, really recognizing that the way shoes are made, all these kind of things, the purpose of shoes. My dad grew up on a farm, so a lot of days he didn't even wear shoes, and now he wears, shoes. And so I think having that curiosity around context is really helpful. And active listening. And I know, that's a very common therapy word you're going to hear, but it's that listening without formulating your answer. But if you do formulate your answer while you're listening, you want to be curious and compassionate with yourself about that, because probably what's happening is, if you're scared that you're going to make a money mistake, if you let this other person make a money mistake, then you're going to be twice as freaked out, and you're going to be twice as quick to be making your points, your 3 points you want to prove to them why they shouldn't do whatever it is that they want to do. Boom, But as we know in any kind of communication, that when we're not actively listening, we're not actively connecting to the person that matters to us. So by shifting that and just continuing to repeat this principle of financial therapy, abundant, compassionate curiosity and zero judgment, while you're listening, or, just really putting that out there helps you begin to learn more about the person you're talking to, like just how you beautifully learned from your daughter. She was thinking as you listened to her share with you how she wanted to show you the shoes, and thank her, by the way, for letting us talk this through a little bit, and, with that vulnerability, but you learned, who her friends are. She's talking to her friends. She's looking at this. She went to, what store did you choose to go to? Like there's tons to learn in each transaction if we don't make an assumption and we look at that. And maybe often, maybe whoever you're talking to, you're so activated that you can't actively listen. Say that. Say, wow. This is kind of the way I say, ooh, my money story just showed up. Can I get back to you in half an hour? And just have a laugh about it. Humor always kind of helps our brain freak out less.
Yes.
So have that moment and be like, "Ooh, man, let's go play ping pong or something," and then come back to this. That is perfectly okay and actually really recommended until money feels like you want it to feel just like you're talking about, anything smooth. Yeah.
Yeah. And because I think that most families are not there. And
right.
And I think that's such a big challenge. You, if I can ask one step further on this question, you talked about aging parents, and that's a big one. I think sometimes I find such a lack of communication with the aging parents and the adult children that want to help them. So do you have any suggestions on how you would try and engage an aging parent that has shut this conversation down? Where do you start?
Yeah, it's such a big deal too, isn't it? Trying to talk to aging parents. Well, I think, first of all, look at wherever someone is right now. If you have, maybe you're in your 30s and you have a 4-year-old and you have a 54-year-old parent or something, if the math does right. In other words, we're kind of in the middle sometimes. Begin today. Just begin. Begin to say. Now, sometimes when you're going to talk about something difficult, the first thing to do is to talk about talking about it. So that's really saying, hey, I would really like to talk to you about money. And then take the money word out. What I'd really like to talk to you about is I'd like to learn your decision making. I'd like to hear your thoughts. I would like to see what you've planned and how you feel about me coming alongside you. So instead of saying I want to talk about money, take the money word out, name what is it that you want to talk about. Maybe, and then the other thing that I say for kids that I think can apply is when you're having a serious conversation with a kid, kind of go by their age till they're about 15 and limit it to that many words. So when you're talking to an adult parent, then keep it at about 15 words or less at first. Like, hey, at some point, I'd like to talk to you about talking about money planning.
Yeah.
Period. What happens, the reason I say that too, is what happens often is if something is stressful for us, then we want to get it all over with in one conversation. And so we get really tense. Maybe we write out all our points. We bring up a PowerPoint. We do.
Absolutely.
Have you seen this? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And it doesn't help.
And sometimes there's an event and there's a scare or something. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, mom and dad, just tell me what you're doing. And then of course they get very defensive and that can be challenging. So I love it.
Yeah.
And this is kind of leading into the next question, but do you find that clients come to you at some pivotal point in their life? I'm just curious because based on the last conversation, sometimes there's an element of a loss in the family or a divorce, and all of a sudden people wake up and go, oh my gosh, now I need to figure out my finances. And I'm just curious if that's what you found with your business.
Yeah, it's kind of the why now question that we like to ask at the beginning of therapy, because usually something brings it to, oh gosh, now I'm going to do it. Often it is for, let's see, what brings people, sometimes it is a pivotal, like life-changing moment. Often it's more of they repeated the pattern that they promised they'd never do it again. So maybe they paid off debt, and if anyone's paid off their debt, I solemnly swear I will never do this again. And honestly, that lasts maybe 30 to 45 days before they have to do it again or feel they have to do it again. So my unique approach to debt is that we talk about how to stay out of debt before we even try to get out of debt, because
Okay.
getting out of debt is pointless until you know how to stay out of debt. So it can be, or maybe they got their bonus and they had big plans for their bonus that was, is going to solidify them financially. And then 2 seconds later, it's gone and they don't know where it went, or something has repeated. And often that is what will bring them into like, okay, what's going on? I want to know what's going on under this, or I can't keep doing this, kind of thing. And so that's really helpful because they've experienced what they're doing isn't helping, because that's often kind of what we are boiling it down to. What you've been doing isn't helping. Let's see what can help.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. And it makes a ton of sense. So,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Or they've listened to us talk about it and they're like, because this is another thing that comes up a lot. They'll hear about me, they'll hear me on a podcast, or they'll hear us talking about it. And they'll kind of be like, this is the way I say it, I want me some of that.
Yeah.
Like, that sounds helpful. I want some.
Yeah.
So yes, they'll get that is another sort of like initiating point.
Yes. And I hope we get that from this podcast as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So how do you work with clients? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I start with discovery call, like a 20-minute free discovery call where we talk about what they want to see different, how, and I talk about how does this process work, because people have questions like, are we going to talk about numbers? And we are, but we're going to talk about them in a compassionate and curious way, and we're going to take time, because sometimes we can go through, for instance, I've often had people, we start on their net worth. And first I'll define it, that's the difference between what you own and what you owe. And I'll sometimes say, let's just pretend you're going to move to the moon and nothing goes with you. Then they can get an idea of what would be, so we kind of get to what works for their brain. Yeah. So we do talk about numbers, but we want to see what works for their brain. We want to heal anything in their money story by talking it over. We want to apply maybe coping skills that they have found in other realms now to money, and we talk through the 10 principles. So we go through that. And then once they begin to heal some, well, I guess, Julian, the way I say it is money always has a past, present, and a future. Mm-hmm. And so one week we might look past, the next week we might look in the future, then we might look at the present. Okay. And we kind of blend how those all thread together, because they do. So we look at that. So it's that's kind of the process. It can take as long as someone wants it to take. Some people work with me for 3 to 6 months. Some people have worked with me for 3 to 5 years. Like it just depends on how deep they want to go. Okay. Mm-hmm.
And is this therapy for individuals, couples?
Both. Yeah. Okay. Siblings sometimes also, because sometimes if they are trying to come together to figure out how to talk to their aging parents, I'll kind of coach them through some of the things we talked about today. We would say in session. And then we would also role play. So that's a big one. If you have a really scary conversation coming up, it's helpful to role play it. So yes, I typically work generally with individual women. I've worked with couples though as well. I'd say a third of my practice is working with couples, and a lot of couples too that really struggle to find a blueprint, because, and I normalize this for them, either they're a same-sex couple who've had absolutely no sort of like path to follow, which I encourage them that's okay. That means they get to make their own path. And that is one of the things that can help connect a couple more than anything, is coming together and defining their own path. Or couples that, are in the, I'd say 30 to 40, 50-year-old range, who had a one model parent, maybe a working parent and a stay-at-home parent. And now they're trying to divvy up, and how do I divvy up and how do I split it up? And so there's, and again, they get to make their own path, and we get to look at how does making your own path decrease reactivity and increase connection. That's our goal. Okay. So I work with them, and then I work with individuals and also with business owners. I do a lot of business consulting as well.
Okay, great. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I love that comment about business owners, because I always find that business owners never take care of themselves. They're so focused on the business, especially these women, so.
Yeah. And how quick they might be to say, well, maybe I'll pay myself in a few years. then we want to
Yeah.
look at what is the story behind that. And
Yeah.
is this a business or a hobby? And we want to look at that very softly and
Mhm.
see, you know, kind of what's the mission here. And then I flip it. When we do the business plan, we start with what are you going to pay yourself? And sometimes that is super hard
Mm.
to do, but it really, really changes the satisfaction level of their business.
Oh, interesting. Okay, great.
Mhm.
Wendy, this was fantastic. How can individuals find you? I know you had
Mm.
mentioned your email earlier, and I'll put that in the show
Mhm.
notes
Yeah.
along with the
Well,
offer.
yeah. So financialtherapysolutions.com is the website hub of all things. At Financial Therapy Solutions is the Instagram. I tend to be on Instagram and LinkedIn the most. So I'll give you those links too. And then we put a 20% off for anyone that wants to get the Healing Through the Money Food Connection. It's a video and workbook that's the code I sent you. So
Yes.
they can get that for the discount, or
Great.
email me if you can't find it, or if you're driving, just send me an email, Wendy at Financial Therapy Solutions, and I'll connect you with that discount.
Okay.
And just begin to help healing. Let's help
Yeah,
heal this money stuff.
absolutely. I hope that a lot of the listeners after going through this are start to maybe internalize this a little bit and go
Yeah.
through the
And
process.
send
Because
us your questions because I'd love to keep talking about this with your listeners. I'd
yeah.
love to hear their questions from this.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, thank you for offering
Hmm.
that. I really appreciate having you on. This was
Hmm.
fantastic.